This is the Inside Data Center podcast. We talk to the people who power the data center sector to give you insider info on everything happening in DC today. Here's your host, Andy Davis.
Welcome to the Inside Data Center podcast. Today I'm joined by David Mitchell, founder and CEO of XYZ Reality. Good afternoon, Dave.
Hi, Andy. How are we doing?
I'm good. Great to have you on. Finally get this one in the can. We've been trying for a while, but we know both very busy people, but good to finally get this one recorded. I was looking back and it seems like ages since I had Waleed on the podcast as well and talked about your organization. And I know so much has happened since that point, but I will put that link in the show notes as well so people can go back and see where you were and where you are.
100%. Yeah.
Before we go into all of that, do you want to just give a quick introduction of who you are and what your role is at XYZ?
Yeah, I'll give my a quick intro. David Mitchell, founder and CEO. Backgrounds in construction. Father was a builder. Grew up on the west coast of Ireland. Learned to walk in a building site. First tour was a shovel and all that. Worked my way up through the trades. Eventually doing construction management. Became an architect for all my sins. But the turtlenecks didn't quite suit me, so I moved back to major construction here in London. Got to work on the Shard and Battersea Power Station, many more, before moving into my last stage of my career, before founding XYZ, which is building data centers around Europe. So quite a journey. And here we are today now. Founded XYZ in 2017. Have about, I think, latest headcount, 150 staff globally. We've deployed our solution across 1.2 gigs of data centers and have raised over 50 million in venture capital. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey and looking forward to covering it. And obviously you've achieved a lot, but I know there's also a lot more still to achieve. I wanted to touch on the founder point because I think it's an important aspect in a lot of people's mindset, I think, around we all have these ideas. We all have this opportunity where we'd like to start our own business, but it's a very difficult thing to do. And I know, I sort of know the story, but I'd like to hear you sort of go from where that idea came from, how you created XYZ, what sort of made you do it rather than sit there thinking, that's a good idea, I'll let someone else do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting you touched on the how part. I suppose people are probably familiar with the why part. The why was like, you're out there, you're in the industry, you see a problem, it makes you angry on a daily occurrence that why are we doing things the way we're doing things? We can make it better. So that's really what kind of drove me, is seeing how fragmented the process is. And sometimes some processes are very archaic. And that can be down to, a number of limitations. It could be just a simple process, but it could be the technology itself. My obsession was paperless construction. It was kind of like, why are we still using 2D drawings? I'd been on the tools, I'd received the drawings, and I'd be looking at the drawings, and some days I'm like, what the hell is this? And then you have to position it accurately out in sight. And often I made mistakes and I had to knock it down and rebuild it or accept the change. And then going to the architecture side, producing the drawings, which was I found very inefficient, right? Especially the 2D CAD days. And then 3D information came along, that made it slightly easier, but still you were translating that 3D object into 2D drawings, taking thousands of slices and issuing that out to site. And some days, the next day I come into the office, I'd even look at my own drawings. I'd be like, what the hell was I drawing there? So there was like this breakdown in the process. And then, you'd build the object, whatever it may be, a wall, a column, whatever it may be. And then you verify after you've installed it and go through all these quality checks, and then you hand it over to another trade. It was like, it used to drive my head in. So I was like, if only we could literally get people building directly from that 3D model in the field in the form of a hologram, and that you're capturing every single activity that's happening out on site at the same time, how much faster could we get to build our buildings? And one of our founding experiments was we built two bathroom units. And one was built by my co-founder, who, hands soft as butter, never touched a block before in his life, versus an experienced builder, which was my brother actually, and an engineer. And my co-founder he was 17 times faster at conducting the task, which kind of was like, again, that was a crazy day. That was like the day we would go, okay, we have to do this, and we dropped all tools. And then subsequently, I went to my previous employer, which is an important part of the story. But I remember going in, I was preaching to him, like, we need builders building from holograms. And I went through the concept with him, and he goes, oh yeah, and then you could just mark with a pencil and build from it. And I was like, Jim, you wouldn't even need a pencil. And he was like, oh, he was like, where do I sign the check? And from there, really, we put a team together and accelerate today. Here we are today. So I'll pause there for a minute. It's quite a journey.
No, it is. It's an amazing journey. And what do you think actually made you do it though? Because I'm focused on that point, because the idea is great, but again, it's only certain people that can actually make and can execute ideas. And I think it's something that is triggered in the brain at some point where you're just like you said, you prove the concept, which again is classic entrepreneurial advice, isn't it? Like, prove the concept before you take it further. You had the concept, but to then go on this journey and raise 50 million and build this successful team, it's still a massive process for somebody like yourself that's come from a construction background, another world really. You started a tech company when we could say you're a builder. So what do you think it was that just gave you the drive to actually do it?
I think it kind of comes down to, you kind of ask yourself, what's your purpose in life? I think, and I've always grew up in construction. I didn't know anything different. And I was always like driven by this notion of the master builder, like from years ago. It used to be the master builder. You'd master all trades. I suppose now they say master of none, but that was before they started fragmented into engineering and structural engineering and kind of all these different professions. I love the notion of the master builder, where you understood everything. And that I was on that quest for a period of time, but I was like, is that really going to change the world? And that kind of became my purpose, and I became obsessed with that. How can I actually change this industry and have an impact on the world and have a legacy? I'm not a religious man, I would say, so this is kind of my religion, and it becomes your purpose in life, and you build your own character around it, and you're like, I have to do this. And that's what really drove me to do it then.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was similar myself on the legacy aspect. I think as you get older, you want to leave something, don't you? You want something that you can look back and go, I did that, and it had a positive impact. And I think when you're sort of in the career journey and you're working your way up, probably through your 20s, this is a majority. There's obviously exceptional entrepreneurs in their teens, let alone in their 20s. But at some point, you just get to the point and you think, why am I doing this? And what am I trying to achieve? And when you get to that point, when you look back, you just want something to look back on and say, oh, I had an impact with that.
100%. And I think like your 20s are an ideal age because, you've nothing to lose. You can just gun for it, right? Of course, now we get older, and I have a kid now, you have kids, and it's a much harder thing to just go, I'm going all in on this. Whereas like mid-20s, where it was the optimal age to start a startup and just go for it to change the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think anyone listening that's in that, as I said, we were chatting earlier, look at your LinkedIn, and you've done some great posts recently on sort of the founder journey and what it's been like. And I think you can learn so much from people like you. And if you're in your 20s or your teens or however young and you're thinking about it, seek that advice. Look at people that have been on the journey. But I would always say take the risk, take the punt. If you've got a good idea, definitely go for it when you're, like you say, when you're young enough.
And you can manage that risk to some extent, right? I always thought of myself as I need to be able to validate my customer inside the company I'm in first before I go outside the company. And you can't always do that if you're doing a fintech company, but you come from construction. But if you're trying to improve the industry you're in and you're working in a building company, you can validate that customer inside your own business. And if people keep coming to your department for more and more of that service offering, as it were, you're like, oh, maybe I can spin this out into something bigger. So you don't have to just jump it straight into the frying pan and like cut your cord with salary and everything else. You can incrementally validate before you get out to market.
Yeah, it's like the old adage of create a waiting list, isn't it? Create a waiting list and see how many people sign up. If enough people sign up, you've got a good idea. But enough on the entrepreneurial journey. I could chat to you about it all day because, again, fascinated by how we get to these points. But with XYZ, it is a great story and also a great product, and it is impacting not only the data center industry, but construction as a whole. For anyone that doesn't know, do you want to give a quick overview of what you actually do, what the product is, etc., and how that's rolled out into construction?
For sure. I mean, I'll start off with like our North Star is, being able to build our buildings faster by builders building from holograms, as it were. Kind of went through the founding story there, which touched on that. But it's much bigger than that in essence as well. We're a full suite of project controls, and we see ourselves as the construction operating system. So what we've developed, Andy, is the world's most accurate engineering grade augmented reality device, which is like a hard hat and a visor. Can you see it? See this? Can you see this in the background?
Yeah.
Cool. So it's a hard hat and a visor, complies with all the health and safety standards, and is able to position 3D models out on site to millimeter precision. And with that kind of enables this not just to be used as a design tool, but an engineering tool as well. Alongside that, it actually has a suite of sensors to be the most advanced data capture solution as well. So whilst it's been utilized out on site to validate the install of setting out, say for, build it right first time is a concept we talk about quite a lot, and Waleed touched on probably previously, is that you can verify installation of works in real time and kind of sign it off. With the data capture side now, we can actually tell you, is it in the right location? When it was started to be installed, when it finished, how many people, how much it cost. We're tracking all these things now in real time, which is pushed up to our cloud environment and shared to the whole project team. So we're a full suite of project controls now.
Yeah, and you touched on the faster aspect in that sort of synopsis, and data centers, we all know, is bigger, faster. That's what everything is in the market at the moment. Well, how can we scale these projects to deliver them quicker? So I'm guessing there's been a lot of advantages by using that software within the data center industry, just based on the growth we've seen over the last 2-3 years from a size of project, but also the speed of delivery that is now needed for the customer.
100%. I mean, like the scale is such an exciting like vertical right now, and it's exploding in terms of scale, but also complexity, right? So simplifying complexity is key to that. And with our solution, we're able to capture all that data in real time, and that does two things really. It allows them to make real-time decisions, and more informed decisions on real-time data. And what does that kind of aggregate to is one of our customers, which has been in existence for 20 years, has delivered their first data center on time because they're able to use that information, real-time info, to not always be looking over their shoulder, but looking at that end date and saying, how can we leverage this data to make sure we hit that end date? And it's objective, it's transparent, it's objective, it's clean, factual data. That's a game changer. The second thing, and perhaps another project we have out in Nebraska, is back to that original North Star. We're not 17 times faster yet, but this has proven to be 5x faster installing MEP works for an MEP contractor. So we're seeing incredible use cases out there in the field.
Yeah, and the data center sector is notoriously, try and put this in a nice way, not as open to ideas as it probably should be. I think it's got so much better over the last couple of years, where we've out of demand and growth, the industry's had to open the doors more and bring other people in. But how has it been implementing it within the construction world and also within the data center world?
So I kind of saw this was going to be tough from inception. And I kind of really drew on my experience from bringing new tech into the field in my career, right? And that was really, there was a lot of hand holding, right? There was sometimes I'd bring new tech into a project and it'd just be kind of left in a shelf or, in the corner and be like, oh, this looks cool. It looks, it's super sexy or whatever it may be, right? But a week down the line, I see it over in the corner. I'm like, oh, why is that? Why is that in the corner? So a part of our go-to-market, Andy, was to provide this stimulus package, this managed service. So we're out there with clients. We literally hold their hand from start to get it fully ramped up on site. They don't have to worry about any of that. They just log in and see the output of the data. They know, that's best in class. And from there, then we slowly start stepping away, saying, you continue on this journey, which is on the owner side or novated to the general contractor. And that's how we scale this to global. That's where, ultimately we want this at every B&Q or Lowe's or wherever. If we want to get there, we need to allow this technology for everyone else to have access to that.
Yeah, and have you found that the industry has become more open to technology as we've all had to, I guess, is the scenario, isn't it? As with AI and ChatGPT and everything like that coming to the fore, people are more aware of technology now than they've ever been. And I think the majority, not everyone, but the majority also can see the impact that it's going to have. So I would assume that has taken away some of the misconceptions around using technology, just the fact that everybody is now using tech.
Yeah, I think so. Like I used to think about this quite a lot, because I'd have to explain it to investors why is construction slow to adopt technology? I mean, before that was like bushless motors and drills and pneumatics, right? But like, why has technology been slow to be adapted in construction? I think fundamentally every other profession had a desk job, and you could load up a laptop or a PC. But that's not very friendly when you bring it to site. So like when the iPad came along, that was a big lift for construction because all of a sudden I could have all my drawings with me out on site. But now all these spatial computing things like AR is coming into play, VR is coming into play, robotics is coming into play. These can really move the needle in the field. And I think, we just had a more complicated environment for technology to be deployed in. And now we're at that point in time where we can do so. So now you can bring that 3D model to the field, visualize it in context. There's no 2D drawings or anything now. And we're 3D creatures. We operate in a 3D environment. That's very natural for us to be in this 3D environment, to the point where that's going to lower the barriers to market for the labor shortage and skill shortage we're having as well. I think, my mom could wear this and go out, I feel like, and understand what's happening out in a data center right now. And if you don't know what you're looking at, you just click on it and it'll tell you what it is. And maybe you watch a YouTube video about how to install it, but it's all there contextually in front of you in real time, and you can leverage that. That's going to be a massive lift for the future, right? We need to attract more people into this industry. I know you're very passionate about it, Andy. Like we need people in this industry right now. We both have daughters. I'm vouching for them to be in this industry as well. And it's incredibly important.
Yeah, I was going to touch on talent, and I think technology solves loads of problems for the talent shortage. I think if I'm a young child at school and I want to get into an industry and someone turns up with a VR headset, I'm excited. If someone turns up with a trowel and a brick, I'm probably not that excited, and that's the reality of it. I think these projects, data center projects, are in the middle of nowhere. Talent, majority of the time, not always. Talent is a big problem to get to these locations. Sustainably, travel is not ideal if we're flying in and flying out all the time. Technology helps solve that. There's so many different routes, and obviously the actual reduced amount of people you need is the final one. So it will change the way talent is taken into organizations, but I see it. I think some people see it as a threat. I see it as a huge and massive opportunity to actually get into schools, get into colleges, and tell them what we are doing. Really,
Yes.
we're not all, as I say, we're not all. I am a middle-aged white man, but I haven't got a yellow helmet on, and we're not, we're not all hard hats and on building sites. It's such a cool industry now, construction. It's just not sold very well.
100%. And I think we need to get, especially in construction, we need to kind of get over that fear of technology is going to replace us or something like that, because we've quite the opposite problem in construction right now. I think there's 500,000 jobs open roles in America now, and they can't fill them. Perhaps AI will affect desk jobs, I mean, that's very real and it's been talked about a lot in the news, but there's not many desks out in the field in construction. So we just need to attract more people here. And I think trade workers will probably get paid more than most people in the future, when a lot of these desk jobs are automated. I think the trades is where it's going to be at. I think you learn a great living and you'll be able to provide for your family.
Yeah, definitely. That's it. Learn the skills that software can't do, I think, is something I heard the other day. But equally, it's I don't want to go into AI too deep, but it's I see it again as makes me do my job better. That's the way I look at
Yes.
it. It gives me time to do the things I want to be doing, and the things I'm actually good at. I'm not great at admin, so if I can get software to do it for me, I'm going to get a software to do it for me.
For
Just
sure.
use your knowledge a little bit with things like that. From the augmented reality sort of perspective, I've no doubt that it's going to evolve and change as we head into the future. Is there anything particular that you think will come in? What extra will you add into your tech, and what else will the industry be able to utilize as we move forward?
So it's going to just get easier and easier and easier to adopt. Right now, we're developing internally what we call the God particle. And we call it the God particle because if you're able to track to millimeter accuracy anywhere on this earth, it opens up every market, within construction and beyond. And that goes for both constructing the building, but also operating buildings, so we're really driving for that. Form factor as well. Right now, it's an engineering instrument. You have to handle it with care. We need to ruggedize it so when at the end of the day, the trays do go into the drying room and they're like, woo, it's home time, and they fling the hard hat across the drying room, that it will survive, So it's about miniaturization, ruggedization on the hard hat itself. From the controls perspective, we just want to make it seamlessly interact with your environment. So I always kind of tell the story of a trade worker rocks up out on site. He needs to build a wall, for instance, a brick wall. He sees the wayfinder path out to where he needs to build the wall. He sees the line and level of the wall, how many bricks he needs. He can even order it all through the headset. Meanwhile, all that data has been captured and keeping all the other stakeholders updated in real time via their desktop portal. That's really where we want to drive and get to. And we want to make it as easy as possible for people to utilize this. Even to the point where perhaps my mother could go out and, build her own extension, if we don't know.
Do you think we'll get to a point where it's on every construction site?
100%. I think it's a question of, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And it's our duty to make that happen. And if I can kind of stimulate more competition to enter this space, great, because we have a whole platform they can plug that these devices can plug into. So we have the software layer that you can plug into. You can just focus on the device. Or maybe we issue reference designs to all the major tool manufacturers. These are things we're constantly monitoring as we evolve. And these are decisions we can make in the next year or two.
Yeah, exciting journey to watch. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more to come over the next 12 to 24 months.
For sure.
Before we finish up, just a couple more industry specific questions. Similar to me, you're kind of sat in the middle. You get to see a lot of what's happening in the sector when you're providing services into it.
Mm.
Challenges at the moment, the industry is scaling it rapidly, and our biggest challenge is probably growth. But is there anything else you see as a challenge as we head through 2024? Nearly halfway through now, it seems mad.
I don't want to keep drumming on about it, but I really think it's like it is. We hear about power and land, and there's better people qualified to talk about them points. I really think we should keep banging on about the labor shortage, and I think it's going to get worse and worse. And we cannot just keep adding more problems into the equation. I think we need to solve for them three main ones: labor shortage, and then we got power and land. Like, we need to solve for them if we're going to continue this exponential growth in data centers. So I'm just going to keep banging on that labor shortage drum, and tell all your friends about how exciting the industry is. This vertical, and specifically, it's kind of getting cooler and cooler now. I would say it's getting more and more out in the media. People are like, one time it used to be just a shed, right? And people are like, oh, what's a data center? Now it's in the news, it's in the media. AI is giving it another pump. I think we just need to excite our people around us to come into the industry. You don't have to have gone to college specifically to come into this industry. There's loads of job opportunities.
Yeah, and I always say that the best thing about doing this podcast, which I had no perception of when I started it, because when I started it, I didn't know how long it would last, but is just listening to people's career journeys. And I always say it, there's people that have been on this podcast that have sold businesses for hundreds of millions of pounds who left school at 12.
Yeah,
It's not the end of the world, whatever happens in school. It's just about your drive and your desire, and who you meet along the way is really important. So, spread your net, get your network growing, and you'll find your way eventually. And we'll all say it, there's no better industry, I don't think, right now than the one we're
100,
luckily enough to be in.
100%. And it's growing. So yeah, get in.
It's growing too fast, but that's another challenge for another day. I'm not going to complain about that one. If you could ask everyone in the sector to start or stop doing one thing, what would it be?
That rework is part of the process, I suppose I'm going to drum on about. Like, it doesn't have to be. If you have the right tools around you, you can overcome that. So it's just stop accepting it, that it's a cost that has to be incurred. That if you get the right suite of tools, XYZ plug, but you can eliminate that from your processes.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's the feedback you're getting from customers anyway, isn't it? So it's like taking those case studies to market. You can prove it. Concepts there.
100%.
And final question, it ties into the talent challenge, but if you could give one piece of advice to anyone looking to work in the sector, what would it be?
Just go for it. I mean, there's so many jobs out there. Just, don't hesitate. Apply for all of them. You'll land a job, no problem. And it's like, I think what I love about the data center industry is the people. Like, the people are really forward looking. They're energetic. It's not a slow moving. It's not, if you want to come in and chill, don't actually. That's my advice. But if you want something that's really invigorating and kind of gets you out of bed every day and excited, I say just go for it. Just apply and jump in.
I think that's one thing you don't know until you're in it, isn't it? About the people and about the drive and the ambition that's within this sector. I've worked in other construction industries, such like you have, and I've not seen anything similar. There may be something out there that I've just not had exposure to, but yeah, it's a great place to be, and the people are great. Everyone wants to help each other, and it's not it might look like a closed shop from the outside, but once you get through the door, which is much easier now, it's a really great place to be.
And the passion, right? You see a lot of passion, and it's booming. I mean, it's always good to be part of a vertical that's exploding, right? Because there's a lot of excitement. So definitely don't be a stranger. I'd say sign up to wherever you can, either a trade, get into the trades, get into general contractors, owners side. There's a wealth of opportunities out there. I'd say Andy could probably hook you up as well if you asked him nicely.
I've got a few contacts in the recruitment world. Thanks for your time. Great company, and I know you've got a lot going on, so I appreciate you taking the time to speak. But where's the best place for someone to find you if they want to reach out, ask any questions, learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, just go to our website, xyzreality.com, or give a shout out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always open to be approached directly. So yeah.
And we'll put a website in the show notes so you can find it. And as I say, keep up the good work. I know it is changing the industry in a positive way, so hopefully much more of that to come. And we'll catch up again in a year or two and see where you're up to. See if you're in B&Q by that point.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks so much for your time, mate.
Pleasure.
Thank you.